impossible dream to watch the unfindable show, to tell the untellable story, the one in my heart that I know, to add the forgotten plot threads, include just the way that they are. The unknown variations, 'cause she's an obnoxious web star.
Rocky! Thank you, though. That was very flattering. Just do the opening. I'm the great Allie. I'm your host on Doki Doki Awesome. Well, it continues, the eternal quest. That is my eternal quest to find the perfect adaptation of Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. Previously on this show, we've looked at the Golden Films Entertainment's answer to the 1989 Disney adaptation, as well as the 1975 anime film. Both of those were nice on their own merits, but they did derive slightly from the source material, especially in The Little Mermaid's Quest for an Eternal Soul. Now, Rocky, keep the music down while the red light is on.
You don't have a red light.
I'm trying to do a show here. Could you turn... Now, Rocky, turn it... If you don't mute it, I'm gonna have to credit the music. Rage quit?
Rage quit.
Well, could you do something quietly? Okay, he's reading. Where was I? Oh, yeah! So today, we're going to be taking a break from watching cartoons. Instead, we're going to be reading books!
Butterfly in the sky, I can go twice as high.
It's no surprise that, since it actually started out as a written story, The Little Mermaid has found her way to print adaptations quite a few times.
It doesn't hurt that the original story is public domain, but since the books we're going to be reading today aren't, we'll just be getting an overview and seeing how they stand. We're going to be doing count them, 4 books.
Ah, great.
Do you want to be on the next episode? Then shut up. Our first book is by dancer-turned-painter Rachel Isadora, published in 1998 by G.T. Putman & Sons and called simply The Little Mermaid.
All of the elements of the story are there, but it's not just a standard translation of the text. She rewrites it so it's more concise and accessible. What's more, it's illustrated with Isadora's beautiful oil paintings. The ocean is done up in, seafoam green. The frightening sea witch who has snakes for some horrible reason. The broken-hearted mermaid at the wedding. And everything that usually gets left out is here. The father and grandmother, the sisters all going to the surface before her, the witch cutting out her tongue instead of taking her voice, and her sacrifice into seafoam so the prince can marry the girl he thinks saved his life. All of it is here in simple text.
And what have I been pushing for this whole time?
No prizes for guessing.
That's right, the immortal soul. Her grandmother explains it to her, and at the end, the daughters of the air lift her up and tell her that she can do good deeds and someday earn a soul of her very own. The most beautiful part of this book is in its closing statement. Normally, the story simply ends like this. The child does not know, when we fly through the room, that we smile with joy at his good conduct, for we can count 1 year less of our 300 years. But when we see a naughty or wicked child, we shed tears of sorrow, and for every tear a day is added to our time of trial. Which is fine for a bedtime story, but it always kind of falls flat for me. It's not nearly as awesome an ending line for as awesome as the ending of the story is. In this version, it goes like this. We are the children of the air, they said, and we live among the heavens. We gain immortal souls by doing good for 300 years. Poor little mermaid, you have tried so hard and are so good. Now you can join us and someday earn a soul. Then the little mermaid lifted her arms to the sun and rose up with the other children of the air. For one moment she looked back at the sea below and saw the prince and his bride on the deck of the ship. Then she faced the light and rose up into the clouds floating above. And for the first time in her life, she felt joy.
That is how you close a book. Sadly, not all concise versions could be this good. Take, for example, this fairy tale pop-up book. I mean, just look at it. Sitting there, contributing nothing to society. This was published in 2000 by the Playmore Incorporated Publishers and Waldman Publishing Corp. as part of a Collect All 4 series that included 3 other Disney films. This book thinks it's the cat's meow by telling itself in rhyme, but steadfastly refusing to have any meter. Pro tip, this is what makes poems easy to read. Ah, distinctly I remember, it was in the black December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, vainly I had sought to borrow from my book surcease of sorrow, sorrow for the lost Lenore, for the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore, nameless here forevermore. This is what makes a poem a nightmare to read. The little mermaid was the sea king's daughter. She loved looking at the land that rose over the water. To look at the land all day long is wrong, said the sea king. You must stay here where you belong. Here's a hint for all you children's easy reader Dr. Seuss knockoff writers that I keep running into at the library. When Dr. Seuss wrote that Mulberry Street book and the cat hat whatever thing, he did it with the rhythm of the ship's engine he'd been listening to. That is what made the books easy to read, the meter, the conducting that I was just doing. It's not the rhymes, it's the flow. Are we cool? Okay, give me 5.
So the pop-up story continues on agonizingly, and the only reason I'm not marking this up with my red pen is that I don't have one that can write on these plastic chew-proof pages. She's not allowed to go to the surface, but oh, look at that, she does, yay! Then she finds the prince's ship, the storm blows it apart, she saves him. Then on the beach, the prince declares that, for saving his life, he'll marry the mermaid. The end.
I mean, I guess it's the end, since it's glued to the back cover. It doesn't see any problems arising from this arrangement. I half expect that the publisher was just going along telling the story, they ran out of pages and decided to just end it wherever. Other stories fare differently. Strawberry Shortcake had a Berry Fairy Tales line that included one such variation. This was published in 2006 under license from the Penguin Young Readers Group, Grosset and Dunlap, copyright those characters from Cleveland Incorporated. This one exchanges the old suffer in life for your eternal reward moral for a more modern be careful what you wish for, and takes place mostly as a dream sequence. Now, I never really watched Strawberry Shortcake, so I'm more likely here to make mistakes or omissions, and for that I do apologize.
So Strawberry Shortcake is at Seaberry Beach with her friends, and she thinks it's so awesome she wishes she could just stay there forever, and she totally won't miss Strawberry Land at all. Her friends are jerks and point out that she'd never see her home or berry patch again, instead of just taking it as vacation talk. I mean, seriously, how many times have you been, like, on vacation with your friends and someone says, "Man, I wish this vacation could last forever"? Do you really take it literally and tell them that they'd lose their job and they'd have to get a job here so it wouldn't be a vacation anymore and they'd just be giving up their friends and family so they could stay in Vegas? No, okay? No, you don't. It's just vacation talk. So Strawberry falls asleep and dreams that she's a mermaid princess named Pearlberry and all her friends are also mermaids. Pearlberry wants to live on land more than anything, and her friends tell her that if she left, everyone would miss her, and of course, she'd miss them too. There's no sea king forbidding her from going to the surface, so she swims right up and saves the prince from the shipwreck that always happens at this part. She now has another reason for wanting to live on land, and so feels bummed out that she can't. Then a fairy appears and says that for saving the life of a human, she gets one wish, but she has to be sure it's what she really wants, because there's no take-backsies. Pearlberry wishes to be a human, and the fairy throws in a dress for free. She meets up with Prince Huckleberry, the dude she saved, and his sister Blueberry. He recognizes Pearlberry as the girl who saved him, instead of thinking it was Blueberry or some other berry or whatever. Not that Pearlberry couldn't set him straight. In this version, there's nothing stopping her from talking, and she does. So they all go to the castle and ride horses and have picnics and do land things all day. But then Pearlberry gets homesick because she realizes, hey, I can never go home again. Although, to be fair, you really shouldn't let little kids make life-changing decisions based on immediate feelings and emotions. Okay, I guess technically you shouldn't let teenagers do it either, but... Okay, I know the problem that a lot of people have with this story. I will address it some other time. Pearlberry tries to swim out to see her ocean friends again, but swimming as a human is much harder, and in a true bit of irony, it looks like the little mermaid is going to drown. The fairy saves her life and goes all, "I warned you, I told you you had to be super duper sure." And Pearlberry says, "I'm just a kid, I don't know these things." And then the fairy says something about how Pearlberry is lucky because her heart can love two places at once, and they compromise. Every full moon, Pearlberry will become a mermaid again and can go visit her friends, but for the rest of the time, she'll be a human. Then Strawberry Shortcake wakes up and she says, "It's late, time to go home." And her friends are all, "I thought you wanted to stay here forever." And she's all, "No, I could never leave my friends." And I'm all, "Seriously, you do know what vacation talk is."
So, Berry Fairy Tales changes enough of the story to keep it interesting, but keeps enough the same so that you aren't left wondering why they bothered to call it The Little Mermaid. Of course, there are other ways of adapting a classic story using familiar characters. Not just retellings, but... satire! Simpsons Comics number 148, copyright Bungo Entertainment. Seen here in the compilation Simpsons Comics Get Some Fancy Book Learning, in which the Simpsons recreate tales from Greek myths, Bible stories, Aesop's fables, and of course, fairy tales.
Lisa Simpson finds Ned Flanders thinking he's ordered a set of Christian fairy tales, but actually got Hans Christian Andersen fairy tales. Lisa offers to read the stories to Rod and Todd. This comic is great. With just 7 pages to tell the story of the Little Mermaid, it doesn't have time for nonsense, just relevant silliness. Every part of the story that they adapt, they do so with humor and satire. Marge is the Little Mermaid. She's old enough to visit the surface like her sisters, who go there all the time to smoke. She saves the prince when he falls overboard because he was drunk. The prince wants to take her dancing, so she makes a deal with the sea witch for legs. Agnes takes her tongue in exchange because she burnt off all her taste buds. Mermaid tongues and tails are detachable, because why not? And then there's bartender Mo. "What's the matter, Prince Homer?" "I met the girl of my dreams today, but she left me." "Ah, check out the legs on her! They look brand new." He asks to marry her, and she will. They have her wedding right away, but it won't work if she can't say "I do," which she can't. She runs away, so the prince marries his rebound bride, and Marge turns to foam. Of course, instead of sea foam, she turns into beer foam, who tells Homer the full story, and they get married because royalty can marry whatever, and they live happily ever after.
This is far from the only good comic in this compilation. In fact, I would even go so far as to say it isn't even the best comic in this compilation. The Little Mermaid is full of humor, satire, and wit, which just goes to prove that accuracy isn't the only thing that makes an adaptation good. And speaking of adaptations, that's 6 so far we've looked at here on the Eternal Quest, and I hope you're not tired of the same story over and over and over again, because my Eternal Quest is far from finished. I am going to continue to search, to read, to watch, until I find that one adaptation that most perfectly encapsulates what it means to tell the story of the Little Mermaid.
I will find the tale, I can go the distance, I will watch the show. There must be a way, it's out there somewhere. I can go the distance, I will find the Little Mermaid waiting there somewhere.